The dry dock facilities go back a long way. They go back to about the 1870s or so. By that time the river was starting to be all things maritime. This very basin that we're standing on was end-to-end ships. There was funnels and masts of all descriptions, likewise over here, and on the river bank itself, on the river wharf.
I mean, even at night time, when you left the yards, the rivet noise was still ringing in your ears, particularly the first few months. Actually working in it was dangerous, and make no bones about it.
Waverley's association with Govan Dry Dock goes back to the 1960s. She would use the wee dry dock here in the middle, number 2 dry dock, or number 1. Waverley was never in the big dry dock, she was just too small for that. The Queen Mary had her very last refit in here, in that basin there, in 1977, April, May 1977. Ships that came here brought goods from all over the world into the city, and from the city these ships took goods all over the world. This was the powerhouse of the empire. This was the powerhouse of the British Empire, and we should never let that statement go. Clyde built means a lot, an awful lot. A number of the ships that were built in these yards downriver here, a lot of the ships went away from here never to come back, but they had the builder's plate, built ex-shipyard, Glasgow, 19 whatever.
When you're a new boy, they're standing watching, they're laughing, they're going, ha. And as you go down the ladder, there's people at different levels going, you know, like this. They make you feel good. But when you get to the bottom, you're shaking. Nerves. I mean, how, in actual fact, some of the guys that followed me, they stopped in the middle. They couldn't move. A couple of them had to be rescued with a crane. They're just totally frozen onto the ladder. Life has changed and progressed, but there was no health and safety in those days. Absolutely none at all. If you fell, if you got hurt, there was an ambulance room, and if you were in there badly injured, there was only one way out, and that was through the double door. You know, so you had to be really, you really use your head and grow up sensibly.
We used to build the 5th of the world's ships here in Glasgow at one time, and you can see very little trace remaining of the shipbuilding industry. And the site, like Govan Docks, is screaming out to be a tribute to the shipbuilding and maritime heritage of this once great maritime city.
You've got the dry docks the way they were as they were built in 1870, looking a wee bit worse for wear. What essentially they are still here. They're open, they're there to be used as a maritime facility of some kind.
The Graving Docks, it's an amazing site, and to just cover it in and build houses on it, I think would be a tragedy.
What's happened since effectively the late 1960s right up to present day is the process of deindustrialisation. So 50% of the equation has been removed. The tenements remain, the tenements are being replaced. The population is probably on the increase again in Govan for the first time in decades. However, the work is not returning. These graving docks could provide a key into future industrialisation or commerce or trade. Never again will we see cut basalt graving docks built like this. The standard of workmanship embodied in that stonework is immense, and it's hardly even replicated in Europe. A balance of domesticity, commercialisation, maritime work, maritime access, and I think key to it is heritage. The many stories that underlie this place are not being told.
positive thing about developing the docks is it creates jobs that will last. It will teach skills to young people. It will sort of provide money in the long term, and it will provide jobs for the unemployed youngsters in Govan. And there are so many, so much interest in the shipbuilding in Govan that I would love to see it maintained.
I think Govan and this part of the Clyde is really one of the last forgotten areas of Glasgow. When you look around Glasgow, there's some great things have happened. A lot of development, a lot of investment, and a lot of economic recovery. You come to this side of the river and it has been forgotten. The reality for the proposal that New City Vision have for Govan is that it won't impact any of them a great deal. There'll be a few construction jobs for a year, 18 months. And after that, there'll be a few more jobs. There might be a Tesco Express, there might be an extra cafe opened up, and that's about it. New City Vision have a fairly bland and commonplace development proposal for this huge historic site. We have a passing nod to all this heritage. We are focusing in on developing our vision for CDPI. Although we know we want to bring the docks back into some kind of operation as a maritime and heritage park, that's good. But for the general public, that's not enough. You actually need to have a shape and a form.
Our main focus is using wind for propulsion in shipping. No place has a resource so fit for purpose as the Govan Graving Docks. And so in an ideal world, I would see this as a focus for bringing sail cargo, shipping, back to Glasgow, back to the Clyde. It's not a little cameo, oh, this is what it used to be like. It's like that now. And if we preserve that, we can move seamlessly into using that, it becoming an active site where there's ships coming in, ships getting repaired, into the future, employing people from Govan.
The difficulty New City Vision has, as the owners of the docks, is they need to generate a certain amount of money in order to pay for the restoration of the docks. So what they want to do is build a certain amount of development around the edges of the docks in order to generate income, generate revenue. They want that to be mainly housing, and they're working to try and get as much affordable housing as possible.
If the people in Govan can go and eat in an affordable cafe and drink in an affordable pub on the site, can enjoy a garden area there, so that it's not seen as being separate from. I think to make a development there which was very clearly separate from Govan would be a great mistake. What you really want to do is take this opportunity to integrate different ways of living into Govan. If Govan remains a monocultural place, I don't think it is, to be honest, but it remains more of a place where relatively underprivileged people live, then it's not going to succeed. It's got to have more variety.
It's an A-listed monument. The Graving Docks are our Egyptian pyramids. They are that important for Glasgow, for Scotland, and for the world. The developers' plans are to build 750 homes there, and there is an aspiration to keep some public realm. The Clyde Docks Preservation Initiative has been working towards an alternative vision for what might be possible.
The Turn project was a coming together, I suppose, of lots of different kinds of turnings. I wanted to think about some of the cycles or changes or systems around us that are bigger than the human system.
We've got some real funding from Creative Scotland via Fablevision to have 4 artist residencies exploring not just the Graving Docks but alternative visions for Govan's future. We've made links with Gdansk in Poland. Gdansk has a similar rich shipbuilding history with a similar background of protest and feisty people standing up for workers' rights. They had Lech Walesa leading them. There's a shared background there, and we've made those links to share that common history and heritage. We're commissioning an architecture competition so that young aspiring architects can look at this magnificent feature and see if they can come up with some ideas for alternative plans and visions of how it might look, how it might be, how it might serve the people of Govan, the people of Scotland, the people of Glasgow, be a jewel in the crown for Glasgow as a major tourist attraction for people from all over the world coming here, the way they do for the New York High Line. It could be a very, very special attraction.
The site has to enhance the story of Glasgow and act as a testimony to build up the future.
Which will in turn regenerate the economy and contribute to Glasgow's coffers, for jobs, for training, for employment opportunities. And yes, there can be some housing, but let's not obliterate the history, the heritage, the landscape, the wonderful A-listed monument that we have here.
Needs to give the Clyde back, and those the project I preferred were those who you managed to build. It's important to build, but to build and see through and see the Clyde, give it accessible to you. CDPI is aiming for a maritime heritage park, a place of rest, but also a place of discovering and of learning. That learning is a really key point.
People don't want to see it just become another housing development. It would bring in kind of long-term revenue in terms of tourism and visitor potential, but whether that would fit with the revenue model that housing developers have is something that remains to be seen. And of course the other danger that we have as well is that the developers behind the Braehead Shopping Centre, they were told in order to get planning consent they would have to set up a maritime museum, and we had the Clyde Built Museum at Braehead, and 10 years later they withdrew the funding for that and it was forced to close. And now we see a donut cafe has taken its place, and the risk is, if we're not careful, a similar thing could happen in Govan. The key things that we're looking at in terms of that are opportunities for social enterprises and young people from Govan, and also a nature park area on the land surrounding the tidal basin that you can see at the back of the Graving Docks, and also a working dry dock facility for sail cargo shipbuilding, which is a new concept. It's going back to old traditional methods of building ships, but building them to more modern maritime safety standards, and it's being used as a way to tackle carbon dioxide emissions from transporting cargo overseas. And there are a number of small operators of these round about the world, and this is a model that could potentially be looked at and potentially could bring civilian shipbuilding back to Govan for the first time in decades.
To take this away now is probably to stick the boot into Govan's future connection to the river. It will complete the process of deindustrialisation, and it will ignore the intangible heritage, the intangible links between people and place.
Glasgow made the Clyde, and the Clyde made Glasgow, and I think we've got to remember that, and there is no evidence of it apart from the Graving Docks. We cannot lose that opportunity.